Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into this very interesting bonus, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we? Today's first part of the upload is a subscriber's submission. A couple of days ago, he sent me his second encounter. Today, he sent me both, so I'm going to share both. Hey Jeff, my name is Redacted. I've had a couple of encounters that I've wanted to share with you. You can narrate them on your channel if you choose so. Encounter number 1, 2002. So I've been thinking about writing this out for some point for a long time. I'm no writer, but the story goes like this. Also, keep in mind that I'm going to see how a more condensed version is first, and then go from there. It's 2002, just 2 weeks before Christmas. I was having trouble sleeping, so I decided to go coyote hunting by myself. No one knew I had left. It was around 11:30 p.m. No cell phones of any kind. Bad idea. I started my trek, as always, down a well-used trail until reaching a steep section covered with multiflora rose bushes. However, I had previously cut a path, and it wasn't hard to navigate, even in the snow that had been falling. I continued down the hill until reaching a large ravine that sits not too far from behind my house. Moving to the left, I went about another 100 yards or so to where it plays out, and you cross a shallow stream. I cross the stream and proceed up a long, snow-covered hillside trail. Getting to the top, I went into action, setting up all my gear and finding a spot with a good backrest and nice firing lanes. My back rested against a large pile of crush and run, my shotgun leveled across my knees. I sat there getting colder and more snow-covered by the minute. So after 45 minutes to an hour, I decided to quit and pack everything up. This is where things get crazy. I grabbed my red-filtered 1mm candle power field spotlight. When I turned it on, luck was on my side, and I saw it around 10 feet away, nose to the ground in my direction on all fours. The light coming on didn't even startle or faze this creature. It's like it knew where I was, and knew the light would be on at any second. It then took a step toward me and lifted up onto 2 legs. It didn't break or crack when standing up. The only noise that I could note was a low, deep-sounding pop in the rib-sternum area. It stretched out and puffed its chest as if it wasn't big enough. I would have had to say that it was at least 7 to 8 feet tall, with 5-finger hands, with 2-inch claws. This Dogman never opened its mouth, so I can't comment on its teeth. It took a step toward me, and having my shotgun already leveled, I fired a shot that hit it right in the right mid-upper portion of its ribs. Mind you that hitting something this close with a shotgun usually causes a major hole, and nothing could walk away from it. The shot let loose a mist of blood in the red-tinged light of my spotlight. It let out a loud yelp, then tucked its ears and ran to my right. It made it out of the light circle in 2 strides. I fired 2 more times at it, but it was much too quick and I missed. I got up and started walking in the direction it ran, forgetting momentarily to reload my shotgun. I walked for about 10 feet and found a large pool of blood, then walked a few more feet and found less blood. This process repeated until I was 30 feet from where I initially started and there was no blood, just footprints. It's as this thing could regenerate or something to heal itself of such a massive wound so quickly. I stopped and realized how stupid I was going after this thing after it just got wounded. I don't know, they hunted in packs then. I just thought I had encountered a real-life werewolf. I then trudged home in the night with a surely wounded God knows what potentially circling me the whole way as I went back. I took my time getting back. It took me 2 hours to walk what normally took 20 to 30 minutes. I made it back home, went to bed, and never spoke of that night again until 2019. I hardly hunt anymore due to health problems, but even if I was healthy, going back out there, you would always be looking over your shoulder. However, I'm working on getting a group of professional cryptid researchers to come and take a look. Encounter 2, 2003. While walking to a friend's house, I was met by a large canid coming out of the woods in front of me at about 50 feet. It looked like the combination between a bull mastiff, a Rottweiler, and a Doberman, only this animal was between 3 and 4 feet at the shoulder while on all fours. It seemed to be at least 3 times the size of a mastiff. It was a solid-looking animal. I watched it as it covered 50 feet in less than 5 seconds, and it was to me. It got right up to me and lunged forward, attacked me using only its mouth. I had no weapons or no good defense alternatives, so I did the only thing that popped into my mind. I turned my body to the right and rammed my arm as deep down this thing's throat as I could, which was only a few inches past my elbow. It must have been a juvenile, as it was inexperienced and its teeth weren't extremely sharp yet. I barely got a scratch on me. After jamming my arm down its gullet, I then grabbed it around its neck with my free right arm and began to try to choke it with all my strength. I squeezed for a good 2 to 3 minutes. The tension in its body relaxed, and then I slowly stood up, shook the goo off my left arm. Talk about the smell of death. It only took a minute or so for the creature to get back on all fours. It stood there gagging for a minute, and then it locked eyes with me. It gave me this look, "You bastard." Then it turned and ran off back into the woods. Both of its front feet were actually hands, as it had 5-digit fingers, although the claw-like nails at the end were less than 2 inches. I didn't get a good look at its back feet. It had the most golden eyes I had ever seen. Again, this event took place at nearly dusk, so I couldn't make out colors well, other than it was dark, not jet black, but a very deep brown coloration. If I had to guess, I would say it was 6.5 feet long, snout to the base of its tail. This one had a longer tail, about 2.5 feet long. Also, it felt like it weighed 200 pounds. It was probably heavier than that, but I once again was lucky and pretty strong in my younger days, and was able to stalemate its attack. I have not shared this story with very many people, and all I ask is we keep it in the group until I decide I really want to share it. People have a tendency of thinking you're crazy when you tell them you defeated a werewolf in hand-to-hand combat. It appears that there may be a living, breeding population of them in this spot, and I am intending to find out this summer. Today's second part of the upload. I was asked to share this experience I had on the AT. My little brother and I have sort of made a tradition out of a section hiking the Fontana Dam Klingsman Dome section of the AT as an out and back once a year. It's a tough little section, 6.5K elevation gain at 31 miles, and we do it twice in 4 days. And usually it's filled with boar and deer and bear and all sorts of cool wildlife. One night, when we were the only 2 hikers posted up at Spence Field, Around 3 or 4 in the morning, the entire woods went dead silent. I remember actually waking up because I felt something unusual was going on. After a few minutes of lying there a bit spooked, I hear this fucking loud whooping sound that starts low and quiet and gets progressively louder and sounds like it's coming from the top of the trees. At this point, my brother is awake as well. I'm like, "Do you hear that?" He says, "Yes." And we both just lied there, listening to it for about an hour until it stopped. It sounded identical to a howler monkey at the zoo. I don't know how to explain it. I tried to talk to someone else we saw out on the trail about it, and they thought it might have been an owl waking up. But I have done deep research into owl vocalizations, and I've never found anything like what we heard that night. I seriously welcome any kind of information or attempts at explaining away this experience. I would be relieved to discover it was just an owl, but I hesitate to believe that's possible. Also did some Googling when we got back and found out some kid went missing at the exact same shelter we were staying at in the late 60s. The boy was Dennis Lloyd Martin, wandered away from his dad, and 1,400 searchers scoured 50 miles and never found a trace of him. I can't help but wonder if they were looking in the trees. Today's third part of the upload. Okay, so I know how unbelievable this is going to sound, but 100% I swear this happened to a friend of myself. Maybe you guys can help us figure out what we really saw. So my friend and I live in a quiet neighborhood. One evening we were hanging out sitting on a sidewalk under a street lamp. We saw this huge dog-like creature walking on all fours up the street, in our direction, but not towards us. At first we really didn't think anything of it. But the closer it came into our view, the clearer we got to see it. It almost looked like a baboon. Yeah, I know how silly it sounds, but I went to China once and saw one in person, with dark brown hair all over it. But wasn't overly hairy, had extremely long limbs, and it was so thin you could almost see its rib cage. I guess it felt like we were looking at a 6 to 7 foot man who had been starved for years walking on all fours. It walked towards this big tree a couple feet away from us and jumped into it. At that moment, my friend and I stupidly decided to run up to the tree and try to see what it was. By the way, we were so shocked, we really didn't think to take out our phones to take a picture. It was only until it jumped into the tree did we think to breathe and move. We did some research later and typed the description into Google, and it said devil monkey. What do you guys think? Today's fourth part of the upload. My friend and I were just going out to screw around outside of my house at around 3 in the morning in North Carolina. About as soon as we opened the door, we heard insanely fast running up and around the edge of my fence. It was faster than any land creature I'd ever seen. It stopped, but we heard where it stopped, so we got a little closer, and just before we turned on the flashlight, it ran to the left about 35 feet. It stopped again, and me and my friend moved to get a better look. And before I even got a chance to turn the flashlight on, I saw 2 huge yellow glaring eyes peering at me from behind the tree. I immediately froze in fear, and it hid behind the tree, then looked out again. By this time, my friend saw it, and about 6 seconds later, it ran away at lightning-fast speed. We went to explore, but didn't find anything, which is probably a good thing, considering that we are 90% sure we saw a devil monkey, which are very harmful. We went on a walk after that, and we came to the conclusion that it was not a normal animal. The way it gripped onto the tree and peered out at us, and the speed it traveled, and how little distance there was between its eyes and being at least 4 feet tall. This was all before we went inside and learned about devil monkeys, and we both are 100% sure that's what it was. This was definitely the strangest thing either one of us had ever encountered. Today's fourth part of the upload. On a Saturday night, August 1st, 2015, myself and my boyfriend were traveling northbound from San Luis Obispo, California. We were taking Highway 1. For those not really familiar with the area, it's a very rural and mountainous area that's adjacent to the ocean, about 200 plus miles away from San Francisco. On a Saturday night, the moon was full, so there was plenty of natural light. The area is heavy with campsites, motels, and it's a popular tourist spot. I've been down this area many times and never encountered anything, not even coyotes or raccoons. That night, when we passed through a city or some kind of park called Grenade, it was late, about 11 p.m., and I was falling asleep, and so was my boyfriend. He was the one driving. Just before we almost fell asleep, a coyote ran in front of the road and sobered us up. We were completely woken now. We figured it was chasing a little fox we had saw about 100 yards back. About 2 miles after, we saw 2 other coyotes next to the left side turnout. I want to make this picture as clear as possible for you, so you don't think we are crazy. I was falling asleep again after about 10 minutes. But I didn't want my boyfriend to doze off, so I forced myself to stay awake for safety. He told me that he was okay, and that it was fine for me to shut my eyes, so I did. Mind you, I still had some adrenaline from the first encounter with the coyote. I remember the air right before I shut my eyes was musty, like old clothing. I bring this up because we both commented on it. But, nevertheless, I shut my eyes for no more than a minute. Then out of nowhere, my boyfriend screamed, "Holy shit," and was driving dangerously fast. I opened my eyes and my boyfriend said, "Oh my God." I asked him what the fuck was so important that you scream and scare the shit out of me. The following is a direct quote. "Jesus, I just saw a baboon carry off a coyote under its arm." Me, what? "I just saw a baboon carry off a dead coyote under his right arm. It had dark black matted fur, long arms, and was carrying off a coyote. It was on your side of the car." Me, "It had to be a person." Boyfriend, "No, it was a baboon. It was about 4.5 to 5 feet tall, long arms, and black hair. The high beams were right on it." Me, "Who the fuck would have a chimp out here?" Boyfriend, "It might be someone's pet that got out." Me, "You can't keep those kind of animals out here. It's illegal as hell." Boyfriend, "You know this area is rich bucks. People ignore the law." Me, "We haven't seen a house for 50 miles. We went on to argue about what he saw for a good hour, but for the rest of the trip back he was hyper vigilant. I want to make it very clear that my eyes were closed and I didn't see anything. My boyfriend has glasses and has poor vision at night. However, the moon was completely full and his high beams were on. Anyone could see no matter what the conditions. After doing a little research, I found out in 2009 there were reports of an ape taking small animals in the area of Trinity, a city no more than 25 miles away from our area. But the Trinity reports were all classic Bigfoot. Please, if you ever seen or heard of something like this, please leave comments. The only other creature that fits this description is something called a devil monkey, which is only seen in far north of California or in the Midwest. Today's fifth and final encounter. My fiance, native Navajo, invited me to go with them to their grandparents' house for Christmas. This being the first time I've ever been on a Navajo res, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had a lot of ideas regarding what it might be as well as what-ifs, nevertheless excited to go somewhere I had never gone before. Most of my excitement was reserved toward learning about the culture and unique opportunity of visiting a reservation as an outsider. Because of this, I was also a bit nervous. What if I wasn't expected? Would the people be welcoming, or would they be hostile towards my presence? Most of my fears were quelled by the wonderful hospitality I had been shown by both Grandma and the people I had the privilege to interact while visiting. We left our house on Christmas Eve with our dog and started to make the 4-hour journey towards Grandma's house. On the way, we saw a beautiful sunset scattered across the mountains. After traveling for about 3 hours, we find ourselves at a turnoff that leads to an hour-long drive on a desolate road that would eventually take us to our destination. While on this road, my significant other shared stories of dances and practices their tribe had. All of this fascinated me and left me asking more questions than I had imagined asking. By the time we arrived at Grandma's house, it was dark and cold outside. As I began to unpack the car, my significant other takes our dog a bit away from the house to go relieve itself. By the time they check back, I have taken our bags inside and locked the car up for the night. As we sit around the kitchen table eating food lovingly cooked by Grandma, we share stories and play a card game. After about an hour, we all say goodnight to one another and get ready to turn in for bed. At around midnight, my significant other and I lie down and called our dog to bed. A short time thereafter, we fell asleep, although I forgot to turn off the light next to the bed on the nightstand. Around 2 or 3, I woke up having to use the bathroom and noticed that our dog was just sitting, looking at the door that led to a small hallway. On the other side was the main door to the house. I called for her to come back to bed, and she just put her nose at the base of the bedroom door, sniffing and scratching. Thinking that she had to go out, I walked out the main house door and opened it up to usher her out. She ended up sitting there and staring. After trying to coax her to go outside a few times, and failing at my attempts, I closed the door and made my way to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. In the kitchen there was a big window to the right of the sink that overlooks the driveway to the house, and a bit of light that makes the driveway barely visible at night. As I reach to turn the faucet, my head turns to the right to look outside, and I see a dog sitting outside staring at the house. Something was off about the dog, though. It was much larger than the typical large breed. About 2 times I began to get chills and internally said to myself, "What the fuck is that?" Grabbing my water and about to head back to bed, the dog gets up and begins to walk away. One thing that I feel I might not convey well is the way the dog walked. It seemed to walk very awkwardly, almost stiff-like. After making my way back to bed, I fell asleep and woke up the next morning. While eating breakfast Grandma had made, I nonchalantly asked anyone listening at the table if the neighbors had an extra large dog. That's when Grandma began to ask me questions, and my significant other started to look concerned. Grandma immediately made a few phone calls, and after a bit of time passed, a native priest and a healer arrived at the house, and they began to converse silently with Grandma. Thinking I must have done something wrong, my significant other joins my grandma in the conversation. They all began to look at me and talk more. Then the priest goes around the house with sage and cedar. The healer comes to talk with me and Grandma about my experience, and my significant other disappears outside the house to gather raw meat. From what I can gather, I encountered something I should not have that previous night, and by my arrival, an outsider, they had to make certain preparations to ensure our safety for the duration of my stay. After this visit, we have visited many other times, and I've had no other weird experiences, but this experience left me chilled to the bone and will live with me for the rest of my life. I can't get over how this dog behaved and how large it truly was. Alright folks, that was today's bonus. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for your continued support. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and also what makes it a place where people can share their experiences, ideas, and theories, judgment and ridicule free, just treated with the respect that we all deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they're definitely dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.